Picture this. Nestled among the breathtaking peaks of Kananaskis, Alberta, the world's most powerful leaders gather for a summit that's anything but a vacation. The air is crisp, the scenery is stunning, and at the center of it all stands a new face, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Known for his sharp mind and steady hand in the world of finance, Carney is now stepping onto the global stage, surrounded by mountains, drama, and the weight of international expectations. But don't let the postcard views fool you. This wasn't just a scenic getaway for the world's elite. The atmosphere inside the summit was electric with tension. Wars raging in the Middle East, economic showdowns threatening global stability, and the ongoing crisis in Ukraine casting a long shadow over every conversation. Every handshake, every glance carried the weight of nations. For Carney, this was a trial by fire. He was used to running banks, not countries, and now he was hosting a room full of egos bigger than the Rockies themselves. The world's eyes were on him, watching to see if he could rise to the occasion and steer the conversation toward real solutions. Around the globe, millions tuned in, wondering if this gathering would end in a historic breakthrough, or a spectacular breakdown. The stakes had never been higher, and the pressure was on. The G7 leaders faced a daunting agenda. They had to juggle multiple global crises, trade wars, technological disruption, and the ever-pressing threat of climate change all at once. Every issue was urgent, every decision scrutinized. This summit was more than just a meeting, it was a test. Could this exclusive club of nations still work together to solve the world's toughest problems, or were their divisions too deep to bridge? Carney was determined to prove that Canada was more than just the world's polite neighbor. He wanted to show that Canada could flex its economic muscle, build new alliances, and help shape the global agenda for years to come. The stakes, incredibly high. The personalities, even bigger. Each leader brought their own ambitions, fears, and strategies to the table, making every negotiation a high-wire act. The Kananaskis Summit quickly became a story of power, personality, and politics, a real-life drama unfolding against a backdrop of natural beauty. It revealed cracks between old allies, exposed new rivalries, and highlighted the struggle to find common ground in a world that seemed to be pulling apart. Even at the highest levels, things can get messy, unpredictable, and sometimes just plain weird. Behind the polished speeches and official photos, there were awkward silences, unexpected outbursts, and moments of genuine confusion. So grab your popcorn, because this G7 meeting wasn't just another diplomatic event. It was a high-stakes, high-drama showdown that would go down in the history books, shaping the future in ways no one could have predicted. You can't talk G7 without talking Trump. His presence at the summit was impossible to ignore, and from the moment he was confirmed to attend, the world's eyes were glued to Kananaskis. The anticipation was electric. Everyone knew something big was about to happen. The US president arrived in Kananaskis and instantly changed the vibe. Think rock star at a classical concert. Security tightened, cameras flashed, and the energy in the room shifted. Suddenly the summit felt less like a routine gathering and more like a high-stakes showdown. He left early, but not before dropping a bombshell. Let's invite Russia, maybe China too. With just a few words, Trump managed to upend the carefully crafted agenda, throwing the summit into a whirlwind of debate and uncertainty. The suggestion was bold, controversial, and pure Trump. The other leaders' faces said it all. Trump's proposals landed like a skunk at a garden party. Shock, confusion, and even a hint of frustration rippled through the room. For many, it was a moment that perfectly captured the unpredictability he brought to the table. But there was a method to his madness. Trump was there to do business his way. He wasn't interested in playing by the old rules or sticking to diplomatic niceties. Instead, he pushed for direct, sometimes uncomfortable conversations, determined to shake things up. He pulled Carney aside for a high-stakes chat, a new US-Canada trade deal with a 30-day deadline. The message was clear. Trump wanted results, and he wanted them fast. No drawn-out negotiations, no endless committees, just action. It was classic Trump, disruptive, high-pressure, and impossible to ignore. He thrived on confrontation, using it as a tool to get what he wanted. Whether you loved him or hated him, you couldn't deny his impact. His whirlwind forced everyone to react and adapt, tossing out the old rules of diplomacy. Suddenly, leaders who were used to careful choreography found themselves improvising, scrambling to keep up with the new tempo Trump set. While his tactics caused headaches, they also cut through the noise and got leaders talking. Issues that had been quietly simmering were now front and center, demanding attention. The summit became a stage for real, sometimes heated, debate. The Trump tornado left the G7 landscape permanently changed. Old alliances were tested, new questions were raised, and the world was left wondering what would come next. The aftershocks of his visit would be felt long after the summit ended. He made sure the spotlight stayed on him, and on the urgent issues at hand. Every move, every statement was calculated to dominate headlines and keep the world's attention fixed on the summit's most pressing challenges. The summit was now a test of who could keep up. Trump's relentless pace forced even the most seasoned diplomats to rethink their strategies, adapt on the fly, and find new ways to engage. Trump's presence was disruptive, but it forced real conversations. He shattered the status quo, making it impossible for anyone to hide behind polite speeches or vague promises. The world was watching, and so was he. The G7 would never be the same. The summit's legacy was now intertwined with Trump's unique brand of leadership. Unpredictable, unapologetic, and unforgettable. And that was exactly how he wanted it. For Trump, shaking up the world order wasn't just a side effect, it was the main event. Amid the chaos, Mark Carney stepped up as Canada's new Prime Minister, his Super Bowl of diplomacy. He managed the room with skill, balancing flattery and firmness, making every leader feel important. Carney met Trump halfway, boosting defense spending and supporting U.S. missile defense, earning points with the Americans. His strategic moves led to Trump's promise a new U.S.-Canada trade deal with a ticking clock. For Canada, this was a huge win, and a sign that Carney's calm, calculated diplomacy could work, even with Trump. He didn't just survive his first G7, he walked away with a major prize. Carney believed the real value of the G7 was honest conversation, not just final documents. He created space for real, frank talks, building trust, even amid disagreement. Sometimes, the most effective leadership is being the steady hand guiding the conversation. Carney didn't just host the summit, he owned it. Just as the G7 thought Trump was their biggest challenge, a sudden conflict between Israel and Iran hijacked the agenda. Trade talks took a back seat as leaders scrambled to respond to a global security crisis. They managed to present a united front, releasing a joint statement calling for de-escalation, carefully worded, avoiding a full ceasefire demand. It was classic diplomacy, strong on unity, careful on details. Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine was also on the table. Carney announced new Canadian aid, but getting a strong, unified G7 message proved tough. The US hesitated, and the response was more muted than hoped. Even among allies, national interests complicated unity. The summit was a reminder global crises don't wait for consensus. At the heart of the G7 is money, how to make it, how to move it, and how to keep the global economy afloat in uncertain times. Every year, the world's most powerful leaders gather around the table, not just to talk, but to shape the financial future of billions. Their decisions ripple across continents, affecting everything from the price of bread to the fate of entire industries. The main event this year? A high-stakes negotiation between Mark Carney and Donald Trump, two heavyweights with very different visions. They faced off over a new trade deal with a ticking clock, a strict 30-day deadline to hammer out terms that could redefine the economic relationship between Canada and the US. This bold move put Canada-US trade front and center, making it the focal point of the summit. The stakes were enormous, with jobs, industries, and even political futures hanging in the balance. Meanwhile, other leaders tried to tackle thorny issues like tariffs and market access. But deep disagreements and clashing national interests meant no major breakthroughs, just more bilateral handshakes and carefully worded statements. For Carney, the mission was clear: make Canada's economy stronger, more resilient, and less dependent on any single partner. He pushed for diversification, innovation, and new alliances to weather future storms. Still, there was progress. Leaders agreed to work together on securing critical minerals and building new, more reliable supply chains. A smart, forward-thinking move in a world where resources and logistics are increasingly weaponized. The economic talks were a blend of short-term drama and long-term strategy. Behind closed doors, leaders debated, compromised, and sometimes clashed, all in pursuit of stability and growth. The summit didn't solve all the world's economic problems. But it did something just as important. It got the right people talking about the right issues, face to face, in real time. In a complicated, fast-changing world, just having the right conversation is progress. Sometimes dialogue is the first step toward real change. The G7's economic power was on full display, even if the results were incremental. The world watched as leaders navigated a maze of competing interests and fragile alliances. The real win? Setting the stage for future deals and building trust for the next round. Sometimes in the high-stakes game of dollars and deals, just moving the ball forward is enough. This G7 summit marked Canada's leap from polite host to global player. Carney didn't just host, he set the tone and walked away with a potential game-changing US trade deal. His leadership was about more than one win. He was the calm center in a political storm. Carney created space for real dialogue, showing Canada could be a stabilizing force and bridge builder. Beyond headlines, Canada secured joint statements on AI, quantum computing and practical issues like border security. These weren't flashy, but they were real results. The summit was Canada's coming out party under new leadership. Carney proved a skilled diplomat, using chaos to his advantage. The world left Kananaskis with a new respect for Canada. Usually, G7 summits end with a grand joint communiqué, a symbol of unity. Not this time. Instead, leaders issued smaller, focused statements on specific topics. It was a smart move, avoiding public fights over deep divisions on issues like climate change in the Middle East. Carney spun this as a positive. The real success was in the conversations, not the paperwork. In today's tense world, just getting these leaders to talk honestly is a win. The lack of a big declaration wasn't failure, it was pragmatic adaptation. The G7 maintained a public image of cooperation while acknowledging internal divisions. The group is shifting from grand solutions to targeted action and dialogue. Sometimes, a few small agreements are better than one big empty promise. After Kananaskis, the big question, does the G7 still matter? Trump's push to invite Russia and China exposed deep divisions over the group's identity. But when crisis hit, the G7 still managed to speak with one voice, showing its value as a forum for the world's leading democracies. Carney argued the G7's small, intimate setting is its strength, real, unfiltered conversations that can't happen at bigger summits. The G7's future is complicated, but its unique format gives it enduring value. Its survival depends on adapting, focusing on dialogue and targeted action. Imperfect, yes, but still vital. In a divided world, the G7 remains a crucial platform for real conversation. As the Jets left Alberta, the Kananaskis G7 summit reflected our messy, unpredictable world. It was about clashing personalities, unexpected crises, and clever diplomacy. Canada, under Carney, proved it could be more than a bystander, securing a major trade deal and redefining its global role. The G7 is no longer a cozy club, but a group of powerful nations seeking common ground where they can. The shift to smaller agreements signals a new reality, progress over perfection. The summit showed resilience, of leaders, of the G7 format, and of dialogue itself. It didn't solve everything, but it proved leaders can still come together and move forward. In 2025, that's reason enough for hope.